will say that this slate of candidates this year has a far hipper music lineup behind them. Everybody has their own music theme. Very well produced this year. Ron Paul is, I think he might be the last of the candidates in the Republican field that have either been in it or dropped since that have appeared on the Chris Stigall show, but we're glad he's here now. He was in Philadelphia on Sunday in a driving rain, and thousands of people turned out to hear him. Pennsylvania primary today, and he's on the ballot. And Congressman Paul joins us now. Congressman, good morning. Glad you made time for us today.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
Pennsylvania, you came here, I thought it was interesting. There aren't many people that do what you did, and I think that's to their detriment. You made the appropriate call to come to Philadelphia and stand on Independence Mall, and shouldn't that be where every Republican focuses a lot of his or her energy, I think, going forward?
You would think so. It's inspirational to be there. We were there 4 years ago and had a big turnout in the other campaign, and we were always hoping to do a lot better, but somebody told me I should be quite satisfied to get about 4,300 out in that weather. So it was pleasing, but I think it's inspirational. It inspires the supporters, but it certainly helps me too to generate interest and excitement. And so we were very pleased. I mean, it's such a historic place.
How many of your colleagues would you guess, if you had to give it a percentage? 35 members of the House and 100 senators. How many of them would you guess, in a percentage-wise, have even been to Independence Mall?
Oh boy, I don't know that, but
if you were to guess, you think even half of them?
I would say 10%, but I don't know that for sure.
Isn't that sad? Not enough is my point.
Yeah, no, not enough at all.
I mean, I've gone through that thing so many times, Congressman, and it's inspiring, and you're a constitutional guy, and to read the whole premise and the basis for which those documents were created, it is a good reminder, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It refreshes our memory. But it really talks to the point, and I talked a little bit about that in my talk, about we're trying to change things in a revolutionary way, and that is exactly what they were doing. There was an intellectual revolution, actually for not a year or two before the revolution, the original revolution, but for 100 years, it was intellectual. They knew the classics, and they brought that together finally and had political action. So I think, I tried to draw the analogy that this has been going on for us who would like to restore the atmosphere of what occurred, at our original revolution, so that we can not so much go back to where we were, as to pick up the pieces and improve upon it. Whether it's a gold standard or the understanding of personal liberty or understanding of the free market or refining our foreign policy. The founders of this country had a lot to say about foreign policy, and we've sort of forgotten about it. We've got way off on a tangent.
Congressman, what historically, and I know you have an understanding of this, one of the most fascinating relationships I like to read about or study is Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson did not get along, and I suspect if you were around at that time, you wouldn't be nuts about Alexander Hamilton either. Did he have a use and a function? The founder of modern banking, which didn't give us the Fed, but he was a central banking guy. Do you fundamentally disagree with the whole concept?
Oh, absolutely, because, he was instrumental in getting the first bank started, and Jefferson got rid of it. Yeah. So they didn't call it a central bank, but it was the first national bank, and that was the idea of central banking. So, the Hamiltonians and the Jeffersonians have been arguing ever since, and I have always identified with Jefferson, and, of course, as far as popularity goes over the several centuries, Jefferson has always come out on top. We don't have a great monument in Washington, D.C. for Hamilton.
Yeah, but are you a pro in terms of the banking structure, the idea of it being a one national currency versus multiple state currencies? You don't have a problem with that? Oh, no,
they did have a problem to deal with. There was no doubt about it. The states were, printing money, at different rates, and it was chaotic, and that was one of the reasons they really were in recession. They weren't doing well after the Revolution, and it was the interstate trading problem as well as the currency problem that the convention was supposed to settle, and they did come up with a monetary issue that we would have a unified currency, but the states would no longer, they're prohibited from printing money, and inflating the currency and constantly debating the currency, and that the currency of the nation had to be defined as a precise weight of silver. And but it did not authorize a central bank, and it prohibited the central government from printing money as well. All they could do was mint gold and silver coins. So the directions are pretty precise.
So it's not a universal currency you had trouble with. It's just it's the printing of money, the inflation.
Well, yeah. A universal currency, if it and the metals came about over thousands of years, is not because government decided it was the people who, as they left the barter economy, they decided it was more efficient to have a universal commodity that served as money. So money developed in a natural way. So when governments come in and they want to print the money, they're bucking a natural tendency of a solution that the people came up without an edict, without a fiat, without a declaration. But governments notoriously have always wanted power. So whether it were the pharaohs of the old age or the Roman emperors, they always want more power. They want a monopoly over the printing and the creation of money, and that is where we are. And this monopoly became concrete on August 15th in 1971. It was the day I was motivated to say, we have embarked on a course that's going to lead to a financial disaster in this country, and that it would, cause a tremendous increase in the size of the federal government. So the last 40 years have been pretty bad for us as a country.
Congressman Ron Paul's with us. One of my favorite moments for you during this whole primary season was when someone asked you kind of the hypothetical question about this young, healthy kid who was uninsured, didn't buy insurance, and then, had a really, I don't remember which moderator it was, but the question was directed toward you as a doctor, a former doctor, and, here's a young kid who has no health insurance, and then he has a calamitous, ruinous disaster, either an illness or an accident or something. Who's going to pay for it? And shouldn't we have a sympathetic system in place to take care of this kid? And you very simply said, and this is a focus not much talked about, once upon a time, you said as a doctor, there were things known as churches and charities that help do things like that. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes, and because I had actually, practiced medicine under those conditions, it was a shame that, they were able to distort that and made it look like not only that I, but others who might agree with me, that we were heartless and cruel. But it is exactly the opposite. I talk a lot about, the free market system and sound money is more humanitarian than where we give up our rights and go to the nanny states, and that's always motivated by humanitarian instincts, and they turn it around and they say that we don't care. But if you really care about people being taken care of, having good jobs and being able to eat and have a house and have medical care, you have to opt for the free market. I mean, the extreme of socialism doesn't take care of these people either. You wait in line for 2 or 3 years and people die and they don't even get recorded. And we're moving in that direction. So the humanitarian instinct is opting for freedom is much a better place to go. But it's one of the major things that we as conservatives and libertarians have to address, because the do-gooders grab the moral high ground. It's sort of like, well, how much good did they do for those houses they were providing for the poor people? Well, the rich got bailed out and the poor people lost their houses.
Yeah,
so
and
it doesn't work.
There's this great discussion now, July 1st, that Stafford loans and student Obama's out there saying, and Romney sort of doubled down on this too yesterday, which bugged me, saying that we need to keep these student loan rates low and locked low. And you have a lot of youth support out there, particularly among college kids. But you've never once, that I've ever heard, been a big federally subsidized student loan guy. Am I correct?
Absolutely not, because I think that created the problem. You get more people to go to universities, and the money is there. And guess what happens? Does the quality of education go up? You get maybe more with degrees, but the cost goes up. This is what happens in medicine. You pump money into medicine, you don't get better quality, you get higher prices. So it always backfires. So we created this seductive system where more people could go to college, cost goes up. So the government said, the costs are going up, not because of inflation, but just for some other evil reason. So they said, we're going to give you more money and give you an easy loan. So the students finally get their degree and they come out and they owe $40,000 and they can't get a job. So it's a deeply flawed system. When I went to college, I could work on weekends in the summer and pay all my bills.
Can I ask you something? And I don't. Maybe you're going to disagree with this. I've watched all these primary debates, and you've pretty aggressive. Every time somebody's kind of come to the front of the pack, you've taken it to them in the debates, and good for you. That's the way the whole primary process works. But there's one guy, in my judgment, who you've really never leveled any real criticism of, and that's Mitt Romney. And I'm just curious if you think that's accurate, and two, why that is.
There is a difference, but my ads, we've put ads out and we've included him and we've hit him on the flip-flopping and things, and people ask me this a whole lot, and I said, I do get along with him better. We're better friends than the rest, but philosophically we have essentially no agreements. I mean, his foreign policy is different. He doesn't care about the Fed. He spends too much money. His civil liberties position is not mine. But, we can't deny that I've gotten to know him over these past 4 years. We know, my wife and I know his wife, and they have 5 kids, and we have 5 kids. So it's probably a friendship that doesn't encourage me to confront. But philosophically, I haven't been bashful about pointing out our differences, because people say, "Well, could he be in your administration, or would he put you in his administration?" It's not likely. It's not going to happen.
The thing I struggle with as a talk host, and I try my level best to be respectful of all the Republican primary candidates' supporters, and you have many of them, and they're rabid, and there are going to be thousands of them that eventually, if Romney becomes the nominee, they're deflated, they're dispirited, they feel like you do. You don't see eye to eye with him on virtually anything. Maybe they'll sit at home, and I would ask you then, do you say to your supporters, look, if I'm not the nominee, let's beat Barack Obama at all costs. Please don't sit out and pout. Is that your position?
No, hardly. I'm not presumptuous to think that, I'm instrumental and I'm playing a role, but it's a lot different for me. I just don't say that, I make the declaration. Just say I lose the nomination, and I say, all right, folks, because there's a lot more than a few thousand, because the independents and the Democrats who don't vote in the Republican primary are very supportive, and we actually tie Obama, in a polling.
Right.
No, it would be so presumptuous for me to say, okay, everybody vote for Romney. I would lose credibility, and they probably wouldn't do it. I don't think it would help Romney, and so that's not likely to happen. But it's still early, and I always say, and this is almost a negative thing, that who knows? Some of these views might change. Romney has changed before. Maybe he will. One of the 2 big issues I've worked on for 30 years has been the monetary issue and the foreign policy. I think foreign policy is so detrimental to us. I just can't stand the idea of all the killing and the waste and looking at these veterans coming back and the suicide epidemic we have, and all the ones that have lost their limbs. This is just, I think the foreign policy is deeply flawed. So I'm waiting and see what happens.
Could I
comes
just
out of the convention.
kind of zero in on the